Welcome back to episode 85 of the Disorganized Wizard Club podcast. My name's Alex. I'm here as always with Adam.
Hello.
And Cam.
Hey.
And we're a group of Ottawa-based players that play just about anything and everything we can qualify for. Talk about decks, tournament stories, just about anything to help you and ourselves get better at Magic.
Yeah, most definitely. Most certainly, occasionally, and sometimes.
There are quite a few tournaments to talk about.
Yeah, lots of stuff went down in the world of wizardry. Not witchcraft, though, just wizardry.
Yeah,
I don't want to get sued.
Had Pro Tour Dominaria last weekend. Also Pro Tour Wizards Tower.
Fair use, man.
Speaking of Wizards Tower, great sponsor of this podcast. You want to get some Magic singles? They have free shipping on Signals and
In Canada. For our fellow Canuck wizards.
Yeah, great store, great content on mtjcanada.com. Great other podcast too. Commander's Brew.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, check them out for articles, singles, pretty much anything nerd. You
All
can find
your
it there.
wizardry needs.
Basically, Diagon Alley.
Whoa. Copyright infringement, man. Fair use.
This podcast is gonna get claimed.
Dude, we're gonna get demonetized.
Yeah, bring it, J.K. Rowling.
It's not a lady I want to trifle with.
I could
feel
probably
like
take her. I don't think I could take her lawyers.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah. Her army of lawyers would smush us like ants.
Mm-hmm. We're just little muggles.
Well, yeah. What are they going to do? Sue us for the money we don't have?
They could try.
Yeah, exactly. Speaking of winning money, how did your PT Wizards Tower go?
Won $50, went and bought beer.
Dudes.
Nice.
Yeah, I made top 8 and then lost to our friend Benson in the quarterfinals.
We are going to not talk about what deck he played or what deck you played, however, so I don't know why I asked.
Oh, okay.
Wow. Just leaving everyone.
Well, considering we're
hanging,
playing both these decks at the RPTQ this weekend, I
Yeah.
would prefer not to.
Yeah,
Fair enough.
We're gonna talk a lot about Standard today with
Even that's maybe too much.
the Pro Tour, and then
Oh, yeah, that's actually way too much.
Yeah.
Well, we're not 100% locked on them, but
JK, we're not playing those decks.
we shouldn't have said anything.
I was gonna say those decks
Oh, wait,
are all
never mind.
mine, guys.
Deck lists aren't online anymore.
Yeah, I don't know why.
Because they don't, they're not putting the deck lists online anymore.
Oh, they're not?
Yeah, so never mind. We're good. Who cares? Yeah, people can know. I don't care.
All right, well,
'Cause none of those people are going to like Montreal, right? So
All right, tune in next week.
then we'll talk about it.
then we'll talk about what happened. How did yours go, Alex?
So I went 3-1 in Standard. I did not lose a single game until I played against friend of the show, Ben, who beat me with Green-Black Constrictor. I was playing Red-Black Aggro. I did not, in every other match, I did not drop a game. And then I 1-2'd my draft to miss top 8.
Rip.
Again, I think I got pretty unlucky in the last round. I think my deck was good. I played Green-Black in draft, and I never found my second forest in game 3, and it definitely cost me the game.
Yeah.
Which was crappy, but
How was Snake versus Red Black?
it felt so bad, man.
Really?
Well, so here's the thing. Game 1, I lost 2-0. Game 1, I kept a hand on the draw that couldn't kill a snake. Mistake, obviously. My fault. Should have
kill a
mulled.
snake.
Should have
That's
mulled.
a mistake.
Couldn't, like, the hand was fine, just couldn't kill a snake, and he had 2 of them, so he crushed me. Game 2, I look at my 7. The hand is mediocre, but can't kill a snake, so I'm like, okay, easy mulligan. 6-card hand has no lands. I'm like, okay, I'm going to mulligan. 5-card hand has 4 lands and a Soulscar Mage. I'm like, well, I'm not going to win this on 4, so I guess we're keeping 4 lands and Soulscar Mage.
Well, should have kept the 7.
Yeah, well,
Can't mull the 5 if you don't mull.
so I didn't really put much of a fight up, but
Just steamrolled you.
yeah.
That match aside, though, Ben was talking about his experience playing against Red-Black because it's been so popular. He's played it a lot with the Green-Black deck, and I think he was mentioning that he's been undefeated for like a month
Yeah,
now
so Ben
in that matchup.
went 4-0 in Standard, and he played 4 Red-Black decks.
Really?
Yeah, he smashed everyone.
Yeah, and he says he's been smashing it in Toronto. Like,
Yeah.
Huh.
also,
Yeah, he's been playing a lot more Magic lately because I'm pretty sure he's fun employed.
yeah. Speaking of Ben, I didn't realize this, but apparently he like comes up frequently enough on this podcast. We like mention him offhandedly, and we didn't one episode, and he like came up to me. He's like, "Man, you guys didn't talk about me last episode. I listened to the whole thing, didn't hear my name once. What the hell, man?"
Doesn't have to wait too long for this time around.
Yeah, it just comes up instantly.
But yeah, we later that night we were playing some game 1s of the matchup as well, and I think I went like 1-5 against him. Like he crushed me pretty easily. in
Ben
game
does that
ones.
even in bad matchups.
Yeah, he's a very good player.
Yeah.
Well, he's listening to this. So I shouldn't have said that. But you suck.
Yeah, it didn't feel good. I don't know. I don't really have much else to say about that, but it did not feel good from my side of the table in game one at all.
Why?
Snake and Ballista.
Okay. Yeah, it's a deck that takes advantage of Ballista better than
Yeah.
other decks.
Yeah.
That's always been the case with the green black deck. If you have that combo unchecked and you can activate Ballista like twice, you just
basically.
you just wrath you plague win your opponent, and then you're so far ahead that it doesn't really matter what else happens.
Yeah, like I was playing a version of the deck that had Bomat Courier, and I wasn't playing Heart of Kirin, which I felt could have helped in that matchup.
How much has Snake been kept down? What does Ben think the bad matchups were then
I'm not sure.
for Snake? I imagine maybe Control.
I don't know.
Because if they settle and fumigate you and stuff, like it's pretty tough for
Yeah,
a
I
deck
feel
like
that's
that,
I feel that's pretty bad.
right?
Yeah.
Like that's why they probably have a bunch of Duress and Nissa in the board because it's kind of their only way to win.
Mhm.
So like if due to, which we'll get into in a sec, the decline of perhaps the decline of blue white in the future now makes Snake better actually. If that's the case, I mean, if Snake has a good red and red black matchup, then
Yeah, I don't know. It was kind of funny because day one of the Pro Tour, Lucas Esper Berto went 8-0. He played he played
like
Constrictor.
Snake, yeah.
And it was kind of funny in his interview. He's like, played against a lot of red black decks today, and the matchups are very close. It's super super tight, but he smashed them all day.
Yeah.
And Ben's just like, oh yeah, the matchup's like, yeah, he hasn't lost it yet. So I'm like, is it really that close?
He's just
or
probably being humble.
yeah, I don't know, but
So it must have been blue white keeping the deck down, right? Like
maybe, yeah. I'm not sure.
I haven't played enough Snake. I'd have to ask like Ben or Phil. 'cause
I
they
thought
play
the
that
blue
deck all
white the
time.
blue white matchup was easy the few times I played it when I
Yeah.
played green black for like a week or two, but maybe
Is green black just like wildly underrepresented as a deck? Like, is it just wildly underplayed?
I think so.
Like, that's what I'm wondering,
Yeah,
right?
like, it did well in the Moto PTQ.
I think it was fluctuating around for a while.
There was
'cause,
a Sultai Snake and a green black Snake deck that did well. Also, it wasn't highly played at the Pro Tour, but it did well at the Pro Tour.
like that's interesting that like the Sultai version did well because for a while there, when Snake was kind of being discussed and then dismissed, they were kind of on like the far creature side of the spectrum. Everyone was still sort of experimenting with Adventurous Impulse. They were no removal spells for Chupacabra. And that version might have been a bit weak and like
what is the
not
Sultai
more people
energy
on it.
list? What's the difference? Can you click this for me?
Sultai Energy, I think it's just Hadana's Climb
Right.
Snake.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that that's what it was.
Yeah, Hadana's Climb Snake. So yeah, looking at the standard PTQ.
But it plays 4 Fatal Push and Vraska's Contempts as opposed to a bunch of Adventurous Impulses.
right. Like I think the Adventurous Impulse version tricks
Was a
people
trap.
and like is a bit of a trap. And like the shell is still very powerful, which is why that deck was performing. But it's just better going back to pushes and some removal spells and something else.
I agree. I would never give up push for Adventurous Impulse, and I just don't understand people ranting. Like Phil was like ranting about how like, oh, it's an Adventurous Impulse deck, and like, why not play the best card? It's like I'm not convinced that just not playing Fatal Push is worth playing that card.
I know Ben plays Impulse, so maybe you could ask him. I'm not sure.
Like he'll probably know, but
But-
I just feel like having push as main in a World of Hearts
Yeah.
Mhm.
is where I'd want to be.
I think Snake is a good choice right now. Like looking at this PTQ, which happened this weekend, you had 3 Snake decks that went 8-0 and another one that went 7-1 and just missed top 8. It finished 9th.
Yeah, like that's
So
some pretty good results actually.
yeah, like
And this is with the Pro Tour being known.
yeah, and I think a Snake deck actually won the whole thing.
I wonder how much because this happened on Pro Tour Sunday, right? I wonder how
Yes.
much of it was people looking at the results from Friday, Saturday at the Pro Tour and being like, red black's knowing I'm going to play something else
Yeah.
just because it's immediately the next day and people are going to be sideboarding for it. But at the same time, like red black's powerful enough that
I don't think that
maybe these decks are keeping up and that wasn't as big of a factor.
Yeah.
I don't know. But so let's jump to the Pro Tour because this is the biggest thing that happened this past weekend. Taken down by Mono Red. And we had 7 Chain Whirler decks in the top 8
Yeah.
and 1 Esper Control.
Good old Scarab God getting it done.
Called it.
Man. So Chain Whirler
Yeah, card
taking over the format
is obnoxious.
like it should.
Why? What do you mean like
Good old
it should?
Chaney boy.
It doesn't deserve this. No one deserves
that
this.
card is I said it on the spoilers thing. On the
Yeah.
spoiler episode, it's incredibly obnoxious. It's going to be miserable to play against, and it's going to be all over the format.
Yeah.
I hate that I was right. Because I also said, how much did I complain even during spoilers about how much I'm going to hate that card?
Yeah.
And everyone will, because it's so obnoxious and so good.
It is, yeah, obviously very format warping. Incredibly powerful card. And all the pros knew that.
Yeah, they
So
all
played
agreed
it.
and just played it because the red is such an unbelievably dominant color right now in
Yeah.
its power level.
Each spot in its mana curve just becomes further saturated with the best cards in the format.
Yeah, like the 4-drop slot is such a like comical example.
Just
Across both mono red and red black of cards that are just like foolishly good.
mhm.
Yeah.
It's obnoxious actually. Like what do you get to choose from? Chandra, Phoenix,
Hazard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like why is you know what I mean? Like what? Why?
Yeah.
They were playing Karn before, but like no, they didn't need to because Chandra's just better, Phoenix just better.
I'm
Like,
still-
to their game plan.
I still think this is like the lingering artifacts of the waffling rotation schedule. That like these cards weren't meant to be in standard together. One of these would have rotated. But then they went
Right,
back
like
to the long
Reds.
schedule and we have to deal with like this misery or like this, a format like this for like a couple more months before everything sort of sinks back up again to a rotation
maybe, but,
schedule
like,
that they've developed with.
Yeah, that's giving
Mind for.
Watsy a lot of credit.
No, I'm saying that this is happening because they didn't like because they thought that these would,
Yeah.
but
No, I
maybe it's
know,
giving them too
but,
much
like,
credit.
You think they really? Well, I don't know, because like the balance from this PT looks awful. If you look at the cards played,
Mhm.
it's like not a good look because it's like the top 10 cards are 8 out of 10 red cards, I believe, and then I'm counting Bomac Curry as a red card,
Well,
and then
we have-
Scrapheap, Scrounger, and Duress.
Yeah, we have the list here. 1 through 10. Chain Whirler, Abrade, Duress, Scrounger, Bomat, Glorybringer, Chandra, Rekindling Phoenix, Soulscar Mage, Heart of Kirin.
Okay, so essentially red cards, and then
That's just
Duress.
someone's deck list.
Duress. Yeah, that's actually just someone's 4 of deck list.
Yeah.
That's not, to me, that's like not healthy. Like, I don't know, speaking of stats, which will probably come up quite a bit discussing this Pro Tour, because this was like quite an interesting Pro Tour for that. Like,
Mhm.
one of the last times that a color just wasn't in top 8 of a Pro Tour was 2010, I believe. Because green isn't in this top 8.
Yeah.
There is no green in this top 8.
Not a single card.
There, I believe, is 2 or 3 white cards in this top 8 because there's like two
There's two
Teferis
Teferis.
and a Forsake the Worldly, I believe.
And there's a settle in a sideboard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like it's barely,
Yeah.
but there is no green
hmm
in this top 8 at all, and it hasn't been, I believe, from seeing the stats online since 2010 that's been the case. So that's not a good look. You know what I mean? Like that's. Because, like, as much as, like, on this podcast, we would say, like, I just play the best deck, or, like, we'll talk about the best decks. We don't care about colors, but, like, players do. Players who don't like having to play certain strategies, like, don't want to have to play this strategy. Like, people might not like aggro and red decks, but if you want to win,
Play Chain Whirler.
like, you know, like...
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, this top 8 is pretty wild, eh?
It's pretty damning.
So like
But I also don't think that... I think that the Pro Tour exaggerates the presence of the best deck, or, like, the percentages of the best deck. Like, because if you look at the Moto PTQ, like, obviously it's not the Pro Tour, but, like, people take the Moto PTQ as seriously as probably some people take the Pro Tour. Like, they
pros
want to-
play in it.
Right, they want to win it. You know, like it's not like it's like a casual format, like where everyone
Yeah.
has a gentleman's agreement not to play the best deck. People are playing the best deck, the decks they think are best.
And not that I necessarily
Yeah, I mean, 5 different decks in the top 8 of the.
So it looks a lot
PTQ.
different than the
So-
Pro Tour, right?
not that I necessarily think like what I'm about to suggest is what's happening, but there might be a world in which like because of the type of standard events we've had before the Pro Tour, a lot of team events, a lot of things where you don't necessarily want to trust the results because maybe they got carried, maybe whatever, like weird formats that sure, like the pro teams test a lot for the Pro Tour, but they also rely on outside data when they do their testing. And maybe it was just like a lack of data in comparison to past Pro Tours, made a lot of them just default to like, well, none of these other decks are actually good, and we're just going to go with red-black.
Yeah. I mean,
Because nothing else really had a chance to prove itself.
except for the old green-blue Karn.
Yeah. I mean, that worked out pretty well.
Yeah, like I think a lot of people. I think you're right. Like as long as you're playing Chain Whirler in your deck last weekend, I think you made a good choice.
Like, that's even what Andrea Mengucci said. Like, I'm just
Yeah.
going to play the best deck, and it's red-black
Yeah,
or
but-
mono-red. And if you are a pro with that mentality of I'm going to play one of the best decks from the standard events we've had, there is 1.5 choices.
Yeah, and I think you will quickly realize that Brad Nelson is wrong and that Brian Gottlieb was wrong from the Game Podcast in saying that Blue-White was the best deck in the format by miles. If you had played enough and if you had played against good players, you would quickly realize that that wasn't the case. Because the Blue-White deck, and we talked about this, like Cam and I were proponents of playing Esper instead, which was quite validating to see it in the top 8 of this Pro Tour because we were big advocates of Scarab God.
Yeah.
And we didn't think it was as dead as everyone else seemed to think it was. And Scarab God performed very well this Pro Tour.
Yeah,
But
it did. There's a lot of blue-black decks.
and a lot of Scarab Gods and a lot of Scarab Gods with a high conversion rate.
Yeah.
But anyway, more importantly, we said that we thought the just plain blue-white deck that people were playing was too exploitable. And even you were talking about that, right, Alex? Like there are cards in the red-black sideboard that if they resolve, that's it. It's game.
Yeah, it was too for the blue-white. It's too easy from the other side of the table playing against blue-white to make them dance.
Yes.
Because so much of their cards are just very like settle the wreckage, seal away, cards like that. Like
it turns out that they're much easier to play around than you realize, right?
Yeah.
Like and this is why even early on, like, and eventually you came to agree with us when we were saying like, no, Hazard's actually not bad. It's not.
so what the main takeaway from when I was talking before about Hazard not being good in red black, it's because a lot of people at that moment were playing clunkier red decks with Karns,
Karns, yeah.
And now like we out of the red decks that top aided, like there's a few lists that didn't play Hazard still.
Yeah.
But I mean it's like but we kind of agree now that like you could just it doesn't really matter if you play Hazard or Phoenix in that slot.
Yeah.
They're both nuts and
But
you're
my point is,
still
like,
gonna win games.
You can play around the blue-white cards.
Yeah.
But you can't play around Vraska's Contempt.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
that's why we like the Esper versions better. And like flashing back a Vraska's Contempt with the Gearhulk is
It's pretty good. I'd say it's good.
pretty good. Like even if it gets unlicensed after that, like the life kind of balances out. Like yours is probably more important resolving than their. Like your Vraska's Contempt is targeting something that is going to win the game. As you don't need your Torrential Gearhulk to win the game. You have Scarab Gods.
You want your Torrential Gearhulk in the graveyard so you can make a 4/4 token and get another trigger.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, like I think most people probably knew the red black deck was like the best deck. Like
Well, it was pretty obvious after GP Birmingham.
yeah.
But
I mean, after GP Toronto though, Brad Nelson had the whole thing right about Blue-White was the
Blue-White's
best deck.
the best deck. Blah blah blah.
It was the highest in the team event because the team event in Toronto.
Yeah, you can't trust anything that guy says. He played approach at the Pro Tour.
Yeah, I know.
What's he know?
But Blue-White was everywhere at Toronto. Everyone, and then Brian Gottlieb had a post like sorry on Twitter. He tweeted like sorry about standard guys, like because he had made the best deck, and it was like kind of like like Cam was playing against Dan, and Dan Lanthier, who's like formerly a gold level pro, very good
He's
player.
been on the show before.
Yeah, he's been on the show before. Doesn't play as much anymore because he got kind of mad about the like price of everything.
Yeah, he just kind of got priced out a bit of Magic.
Yeah,
right?
he literally his exact words. He said it on our podcast. He said, "I'm getting priced out of this game. It's too expensive to keep up with the travel, even as a gold level pro."
Yep.
And so he now he just plays like the tower opens. And
Yeah.
Anyway, he was saying to Cam when he was playing an event against him, he said like he smashed him playing blue. Cam was playing blue-white, and Dan smashed him with just like red-black or whatever, and said like, "Nah, I just don't think blue-white's as good as everyone thinks it is. Like I think this is exactly how the matchup goes. Like I duress you." I resolve Angrath or like a problematic permanent, and
Like that was
you're dead.
Yeah.
That was the most miserable Saturday event I've played in probably a year, maybe longer. Like, I don't know. I don't want to brag too much, but like I usually do fine, like passable at Saturday events, like 3-2, sometimes better. But I went 0-3 and dropped.
Yeah, when's the last time you went 0-3 drop? Like
Right, exactly. Like it's been like years.
Yeah.
And
Man, they're so good at Magic.
I
No,
never 0-3 drop.
this
Because
is-
I'm nuts.
this is factual. It's just a fact.
Yeah, no, I know. I'm just ripping on you.
And like it was with a control deck. Again, usually I do fine with control decks. And like I was playing this blue-white deck because because we were considering it for the unified RPTQ to like very briefly to like try and get a feel for it. And yeah, played against 3 people who have played on the Pro Tour in the past and knew how to play around white cards, and I just could not win a match.
Yeah,
I don't think I was making any mistakes. Like, and I talked to them afterwards because I was frustrated. Like, how does anybody think this pile's good? Like, I can't do anything with it. And they're all like, "Yeah, this is about how I expected this matchup to play out." Like, I'm not really shocked.
Yeah, and they all said this. Cam came home and was like, said this to me, and I said, "Yeah."
I wasn't even mad I 0-3'd. I was just mad that like people were trying to tell me this deck was good.
Yeah, and I said like, "Yeah, that deck like was probably good." And then as soon as people realized they could play around the white cards, like that was it.
Yeah. It definitely had its moment where it was very, like, sat very well in metagame. I think you'd be crazy to pick that up.
And I think it was like it was a metagame that just people forgot. Like there was a collective, conscience of like forgetting how to play around white cards.
Yeah.
And as soon as people remembered, they're like, "Oh wait, I can just play around this and smash them." And yeah, Cam said like it was he never felt so miserable. And I played some games with the deck against like various. We've been testing a lot, and it was the same way. I was like, "This is miserable." Like I played the blue-black mid-range deck that's been picking up in popularity that some people showed up at the Pro Tour with.
Yeah,
and I beat blue-white control, which I don't think you should ever win game 1 with that deck because you have a million dead cards. Because I just played patiently and waited to resolve like my Liliana, and
so like
that was it.
That's all she wrote.
Yeah. Like it's just too much. Like bringing back Champion of Wits from the graveyard. Like control just does not have like the power to threaten and close games and to also take massive leaps in card advantage that they need. Like it just the deck's anemic.
So I was playing a bunch of games of red black versus blue white with Curtis, and we came to the conclusion that like it's a miserable deck from both sides, because if you lose to blue white, it feels like they always have the answer for everything you do. You cast a creature, it gets essence scattered. You cast a planeswalker, it gets negated. But if you're the blue-white player in those exact same games, it also feels miserable because you only have a negate in their hand, and you're praying they cast a non-creature, and then they do, and you negate it. And then the next turn, you happen to draw an Essence Scatter, and then they cast a creature, and you Essence Scatter it. Where like if your opponent just flips a coin and chooses to cast the other one, you lose.
Yeah.
And so like...
Yeah, like instead of casting their heart, they're like, maybe I'll just play around a game. And they play a 2-drop, and you can't do anything.
Right, and from the other side, from like the non-blue-white player, you just have to look at your hand and be like, well, they got 2 mana up, like... What do I play around? Negate or Essence Scatter? One way I lose this game, one way I win. Like, it's just so miserable.
Yeah. I mean, it's most likely Essence Scatter, but...
Still. And, like...
Just always jam.
If you don't have to ferry on 5...
Just keep jamming until you can't jam no more.
If you don't have to ferry on 5 to keep up this, like, supply of narrow answers, eventually something will stick and you'll lose.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that, like, as soon as the format, like, initially began as, like, seal away to fairy decks, and people just were like, okay, we'll just play 4 hearts, and people just started playing Heart of Kiran, I think that you had to abandon ship.
Yeah.
Because that's why the blue-black decks did better at the Pro Tour. They have Fatal Push.
Yeah, definitely.
Like, that's just... Fatal Push is just better than Seal Away.
Heart of Kiran isn't really going anywhere, guys.
Yeah, that card's busted.
I mean, it's going across the battlefield and hitting your opponent.
2 mana 4/4 flyer turns out
it's pretty good.
pretty strong.
Holy.
Especially when it gets to crew with Chain Whirler. Like, it's not going anywhere.
No.
And so, Seal Away is just not...
No.
It's not enough. The white cards are... Don't get me wrong, Seal Away is an insane card. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's a very good card. But it just doesn't line up against Heart. Yeah. And the rest of the blue-white deck kind of sucks. Like, it doesn't have enough. Like, it's like Cam said, if you don't have Teferi on 5...
Yeah, if you don't have the one good card in your deck, you're dead.
I say yikers.
So...
I imagine it feels somewhat similar to like blue-green Karn in that like that deck is built around Ballista. And if you play a Glint Nest Crane and you play a Scrap Trawler and you put your implement on something and you draw a card and you never find a Ballista, your deck feels like a shitty draft deck.
Yeah, for those of you who don't know or didn't happen to see the deck or like it on coverage the one time it was on coverage at the Pro Tour.
Yeah, before
it was on camera the first couple of rounds.
Oh, was it first 2?
Why were they showing losing decks?
Well, they were
lost. Yeah,
they had positive limited rares at that point. So,
but Yvonne Flock did the best with it. He went 7-3.
Yeah,
and the deck is a green blue.
It's a pile of cards.
Well, it's. I think it's actually so it split the finals of PT Wizards Tower.
Yeah,
but in the hands of Dan, who's a very good player. But I think the deck's probably not as bad as I want to think it is. Like, I admit to thinking it's like quite bad, but it's probably not a complete, utter, unplayable trash. Like, I don't think that like LSV and that team shows up with just complete trash.
Yeah.
But like, like I don't think the deck's very good, but like I can see draws where like the onslaught of ballistas are good enough, because that's the goal of this deck for people who don't know, is like just constantly have a ballista, like put counters on your ballista.
That's my point, that it feels like blue-white. Like, you have draws where you can't imagine this deck ever winning, and you also have draws where you just like kind of easily smash your opponent because you put your interactions together.
Right. It feels unfair.
Yeah. And like,
although I don't think they're saying it's the best Karn deck, and I still wildly disagree that that's the best Karn deck. I don't even think Karn is like that important in that deck. I think it's a good source of card advantage, but Ballista obviously is like the real Ballista plus Murderous Gearhulk and Scrap Trawler are the real.
Yeah, but I mean the tokens, like creating tokens in that deck, are very, very good.
Yeah. And there are definitely games where, against like mono red and red black, where just being able to make 2 1/1s with Karn is like,
those cards are 5/5s in that deck.
no, but I'm saying if you have nothing, like that can buy you enough time that if you top deck a Scrap Trawler or, you know what I mean? Like,
actually, talking to Dan, I talked to him a bit about his experience with that deck, because I was really interested to see how it played out. And he said Sorcerer's Spyglass is just absolutely busted.
yeah, how many was he main decking?
Oh, I
I
don't
made deck
remember.
2, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah, but he was incredibly impressed about how great that card was in that deck.
Card nuts.
Yeah.
Card's so good. I remember there's a guy named Bill who plays like locally, and he was playing like an improvised deck forever with like Herald of Anguish and stuff, you know? And he like did okay with it, but he would always play Sorcerer Spyglass main like back like last format, during like Grixis Energy, and it was like obnoxious because he would just name Scarab Gods or like whatever, right? Like it was really good, but there were more braids floating around during that time, so it's kind of like,
yeah. I mean, there's still a lot of
There's still a
braids,
lot
but
of
like
braids, but-
when you're playing a deck like that, you have so many targets. Your braids are kind of, you hold like you're casting a lot more of them is what I'm trying to say. So like it's easy for one artifact to kind of just come at the right time and then take over the game.
Like one of the big debates we're having right now for our RPTQ decks is like which deck gets Spyglass. Like we're because like almost all of our decks want to play it in the sideboard. It's like a debate where like we don't know what to do because that card is so good.
Well, I mean, one of your decks is mono red or red black, and I don't think like that deck doesn't
you
need
can sacrifice it there.
That's not the deck.
I don't think that deck needs it.
But I think every other deck is like kind of debating playing it. I think the deck that card is so good.
Yeah,
and not just in green blue Karn, like just in general. That card's
it's very good.
What is like the equivalent of that card in standard? There isn't. That card is like uniquely powerful in what it does. And no card kind of can replace that.
Currently,
like
when was the last time Pithing Needle was in standard?
A couple years ago.
Was it
Yeah,
Pithing?
it's been a couple
during
years ago.
like Mutavault Pack Rat era. There was Needle.
Yeah,
because people used to needle those cards.
Yeah,
and Jace.
Yeah, the good old days.
I don't know if people needled Elspeth. Like if it was around during. I can't remember.
The good old days when you could thought season a pack rat. Man, I miss that.
Yeah, just fun and interactive magical cards.
Yeah. Interacting with my opponent's hand.
Just like Hazoret. Fun and interactive magical card.
Which card would you rather lose to? Pack Rat or Hazoret?
They're both. Would I rather lose to?
Yeah.
I would rather lose to Hazard because I feel like I'm going to die faster.
Yeah.
Whereas Pack Rat, they're just going to sit there and I'm just going to be miserable, and then they're just going to kill me. Like.
Yeah, and you kind of you realize earlier that you're losing to Pack Rat, and there's nothing you can do about it. So you just have to sit there and just watch them make more rats every turn.
And then you like have to also go through the awkward like, if I double block here and they turn on their Mutavault, like can they like make their rat big enough that I actually get blown out here if they have a removal spell? Like, oh god, like
yeah.
I guess I'll just put like 5 guys in front of the 3/3 rat because it might be a 6/6. Like who knows?
And otherwise, like your opponent casts Hazard, you're like, well, I'm dead, and you just know it immediately.
Yeah, you're either just jumping or you can answer it.
Yeah.
Like
there's no hope you're clinging to. It's just immediately all sucked out of your body.
Notably, they both have 3 mana activations.
Yeah, that's the real issue. Ban 3 mana activations.
3 mana discard a card activations.
Oh, that's the key.
Oh man,
get the tinfoil hat. The next time there's a 3 mana discard activation,
just buy 4 of them, pre-order them, put them in your deck.
Yeah, it's busted.
Man, it's wild.
we figured out the design flaw.
That's like the code they use to communicate to like the people who used to be in R&D so that they can win the Pro Tours and stuff.
Man, yeah. So, lots of I want to talk a little bit about this whole mono red versus red black debate because we actually, within our chat, we had a lot of debate about which deck performed better.
Okay, so in my defense, I trusted Seth's math originally from MTG Goldfish, in which he wrote that mono red outperformed
So his
red black.
Yeah, his analysis is correct, but for some reason he counts red as having an extra deck, having made above 24 points.
Yeah.
And at one point he says that 48 divided by 48 is 0.79, which is not correct. It's 1.
Well, so don't trust him.
So
Trust us.
So there's some typos on his page as well.
Yeah, like there are some typos and miscalculations in his percentages where he talks about the performance of mono red, and he overestimates the performance of mono red due to these mistakes. So that was my bad. And then Stelly did the math. So what it actually turns out to clarify is mono red does better day 1 at the Pro Tour.
Yeah. So
And then day 2, red black does better.
yeah, we'll dive into a little bit about this because I actually think it's really interesting to talk about. And we have a resident math magician, so we're right. And
Who?
You
Oh, I'm just a mathematician and a magician.
in our combination.
No, not yet.
You're not a gimmick.
I'm still in school.
But so to look at day 1 performance, really the only like data point we have to go off is conversion rate.
Yeah.
Where mono red had the highest conversion rate out of all 3 strategies if you split red black into mid range and aggro.
Yes.
So I think mono red was the highest at 79%
It
of
was
decks.
very high, like surprisingly high.
75 or 79
No,
or
it's
something.
It was 79, yeah.
79.
I think red black mid range was 75.
Yeah, I think it's more so. I think more so like he just kind of wanted to have that narrative, by the way, because like everybody thought mono red was gone, and then it just did so much better than expected. Because I also think his sort of construction of the stats of blue white's performance are also skewed because he says like, oh, blue white underperformed. It was very bad. Well, it had a 58% conversion rate. It wasn't that bad.
But he's comparing it to like 63% of players convert.
Yeah, I know.
So-
but it wasn't like 44%.
Oh, yeah.
Which is blue-green Karn or white-black vehicles, which
Yeah.
were decks that just did not perform. Although Morgan McLaughlin went 7-3 and someone else went 8-2 with black-white vehicles. But the rest of the black-white vehicles as a top 10 played archetype was among the worst performing archetypes.
You expect 1 or 2 copies to get lucky, even if your deck's not amazing. So that's...
Yeah. So we kind of looked at it as red black mid range had a 75% conversion, red black aggro 63, and then mono red 79. So we kind of discussed if this was a good metric of measuring day 1 performance because you have to take into account limited records.
No,
but
you
we
don't.
well this is I'm getting to the next point. So but then we kind of realized that if you just kind of assume that limited is balanced across the board, it doesn't really matter.
Yes, because you have to.
yeah,
You can't assume one archetype has just inherently better limited players. You have to assume that all archetypes have equally performing limited players.
Yeah.
Which is an unfortunate part about what not having day 1 stats, but that is what logically we have
in
to
an
do.
ideal world, we would to actually get to the bottom of this, we'd have to look at standard records from day 1, but we just don't have access to that. So going off this information, mono red had the best day 1 performance. But then to look at day 2, what we did was we looked at the number of decks that made day 2 in each archetype, and then took the percentage of how many of those ended up in the 24 to 27 point deck lists. And what we found was red black as a whole had, I think,
14%, and mono red had 8 or 9.
10%. So there was about a 4% difference. So red black did perform better overall across the entire tournament. But
however, like of note, if you look because in MTG Goldfish's write-up, he has those percentages at 10 point something and 10 point something for each archetype.
Yeah.
Because it brings it up to equal because he thinks there was one more deck from red.
Mm-hmm.
When you have 50, your data point is 50, 60 people that made day 2 on an archetype, one win or one loss will shift it that 4%.
Yeah.
So
So
they're functionally the same.
ultimately we came to the conclusion that actually it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Like
it's
red,
a
black,
little
and-
weird too because out of those 4 mono red decks, I made 27 or 24 points. 2 of them had black lands, played Canyon Saloon, Dragon Skull Summit, and one of them had black cards in its sideboard. So
there's also the problem that they misidentified for whatever reason, black-red mid-range and aggro multiple times.
Yeah.
And what they called aggro and what they called mid-range.
Well,
I think because of the again tinfoil hat of wanting to make standard look more diverse than
well,
it
it's kind of funny because Reed Duke and Owen Turtenwald played the exact same 75. One of their decks got listed as mid range and one got listed as aggro.
I think that's fixed now on the
Is it?
the post
Yeah, because
things.
they tweeted at like
Yeah.
Tim Willoughby being like, "Whoa, like why is this happening?"
Yeah. It's fixed now on their like final standings, but at one point they had them labeled
Yeah.
separately.
So, but yeah, I think that like ultimately, even if mono red has the better day one conversion and red black does better day two, like it's like the stats don't really tell a specific story other than both these decks were just like wildly dominant red decks at this
Yeah.
tournament.
I do
Like,
think there is something important to take from these stats, and it like yes, mono red and red black performed about equally, but I think based on day one conversion, and I didn't actually look at it for day two, red black aggro, this sort of like hybrid deck, did worse. It did about average.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think if you're to take anything from this, it's that you can pick whichever one you want, but pick a side. If you go red black, like take advantage of your black lands, go a bit bigger, play more black spells, maybe out of Vraska's Contempt. And if you want to go aggro, just go red.
yeah, okay, yeah. That isn't one thing because it's actually surprising how well Owen did. I mean,
Mhm.
maybe it's because he's Owen.
I
But-
think that has a lot to do with it.
But if you look at the statistics, the build that Owen's playing, that was a bunch more one drops and cards that die to Chain Whirler, did worse across the board, like you said.
Mhm.
The generally speaking, the red black decks that were a tiny bit bigger did better.
Yeah.
So I get that is the one thing I think we can say. Because originally I was going to say, okay, well maybe mono red's better against a broader field, and that's why it has a better conversion rate. But the percentages are so close.
Yeah.
And same with the more I think about it, like it because the deck numbers are so small that like is red black converting to top 8 or 27 points or whatever.
Yeah.
The 13.9% better than the 10.8.
Yeah, it's
Like-
literally basically the same.
It's you know what I mean. It's one deck difference.
Yeah,
like
it's-
blue black mid range would have been in top 8 of this Pro Tour if Kevin Jones doesn't punt versus Marcio.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like
Yeah. So what I kind of picked up from, the comparisons they were making between aggro and mid range when it comes to red black was if they weren't playing Bomat Courier, they called it mid range, and if they were,
yeah,
they called it aggro.
they said that on the website.
Yeah. But I mean, I think that's a little misleading because I think if you're not playing Bomat but you're playing a card like Hazoret, you're probably playing aggro.
It means you're also probably playing less unlicensed Disintegration, which he
Yeah.
is.
Yeah. But I mean, out of
I didn't realize he's playing 3 Hazard.
out of the
Going in.
seven red black decks that made top 8, 6 of them were playing Bomat Courier. So that's a little awkward if we're saying, if you're
Yeah.
kind of going low, maybe you want to play mono red, but maybe that's not true. But they're so different. Like Turtenwald's not playing Rekindling Phoenix; he's playing 3 Hazoret, and then you have someone like Marcio and Pinto who are playing Bomat as well, but they're playing 0 Hazoret, just 4 Phoenix.
And 4 Phoenix. I think
So
Bomat Courier might be so good that you just have to play it. Like it's worth the risk.
I for what I played at Pro Tour Wizards Tower this past weekend. I wafted like between 3 different versions of red black, and I finally put Bomat Courier back in my deck for the version I ended up playing, and thank God I did because that card is so good.
Yeah, it probably just so good. you have
It's
to play it.
it was amazing for me. It doesn't even matter that I played against Chain Whirler decks. Like the card's great, and if I was going to play red black again this weekend, I would play a Bomat version.
Yeah, maybe that's the case.
But-
that like you can still go a bit bigger. Like
Yeah.
you know what I mean. Just because you're playing Bomat doesn't mean you can't also.
Yeah, like I really like Marcio's list. It's very close to what I played, except I played 1 Pia, 2 Glory Bringers, and I didn't play Heart of Kieran. I played Earthshaker Kenra, which was very mediocre. I think I would play play Heart of Kieran.
Hearts. See, I like the list because they're all playing like 2 to 3 hearts, which I like.
Yeah.
I don't like playing 4 because you don't want to get them stuck in your hand.
None of the lists are playing 4 anymore.
Yeah.
They kind of did at the start, but they all moved to 3. 3 was the number, but now 2 looks like
There's in the top 8. There's like 2 and 3.
yeah. So I really like his version. I like the cut ribbons in the main deck.
The number one thing to take away if you're playing a red black deck actually is play a bunch of Aether Sphere Harvesters in your sideboard.
Yeah,
Card
that's-
was comically good on coverage.
Oh, it's disgusting.
Obviously, like
Yeah.
whenever people play, it's like, oh, they better draw a braid or this guy's toast. You know?
Yeah, I mean, in the mirror match, it changes things so like
The card's
Yeah.
unbelievable, and it was the last time that Mono Red won a Pro Tour. It was, in fact, if you remember that top 8, it was the defining card
mhm.
for the mirrors, and it was one of the major things that even Paulo wrote about. Like, this card is so important, you have to save a braid for it. If you don't, you're going to lose.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And
Yep.
it was, again, in this top 8, every time you saw it, it was either abraded or it was a big problem.
Yeah, and well, I mean, you see these decks: 4 Phoenix, Glorybringer, Heart of Kieran, all
AKA
get brick.
cards that don't attack through.
All your bombs get brickwalled by this card.
Yep.
Now
Well,
it's
Yeah, in the world of Chain Whirler, it's a bit more risky, but
Yeah, block a 4 power and then get
Yeah.
Chain. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
that's gonna happen.
Yeah.
Like that's a risky take. And you can play around that. Like, you can attack with your Aether Sphere
Mhm.
instead. You
Yeah.
can set up blocks to you're safer. Like, there are ways to do it.
yeah,
double
So,
block with 2 Aether Spheres.
I like the multiple cut to ribbons. Cut to ribbons
yeah.
was real good
Yeah,
throughout its Pro Tour tenure that I saw it on coverage. Like, it threatened kills. Like,
it was very good for me. I played 1 copy in my deck, and it won me 2 games.
yeah, card's
Yeah,
pretty good.
It's great. I
like
really
how
like
it's-
cut ribbons.
I mean, it's not a clean answer, but with a Soulscar Mage, it's one of the cleaner answers Red Black has to a Hazaret.
Yeah,
because that's the card that you struggle to beat as red black.
I guess
Oh, yeah.
Chandra's defeat's also very good, but
yeah. Like game one, you can't really answer a Hazaret without jumping through hoops,
Yeah.
right? And I think Wyatt Darby actually had this to his advantage in the top 8 because you play 2 pre-board games. He played against Red Black the entire way.
I believe so, yes.
Yeah, and being the better Hazaret deck as mono red aggro and having a favorable matchup game 1, I think that really benefited him.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. But
Old fight with Fire 3 in the board. I wonder how many on day 1 blue-white players he just smashed with it. Because they, like, settled him, and he just tanned him.
yeah, I don't know.
Because I bet that happens a lot. You definitely board that card in against blue-white.
yeah, you just
Yeah.
have to. You're scared of Lyras.
You're
Yeah.
scared of Lyras, but also if they settle you a bunch, you just kill them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, probably non-zero amount of times.
Oh, I guarantee it happened.
Yeah. It's super cool. But I mean, can we talk about the punt of the last turn of the Pro Tour?
Yeah, that sequence to end the tournament.
Man, so I'm sure everyone has already seen it by now,
If
but
not, spoilers.
if not, yeah, spoilers. Go watch it. Wyatt Darby, no cards in hand, rips in a braid to not die, and then rips a Glorybringer to Xaxes Pinto to win the game. But
In game 5.
in game 5 of the finals, but the thing a lot of people originally missed was Pinto just missed lethal on his last turn
Yeah.
when Wyatt drew the abrade. And because he missed lethal, the attack he made allowed the abrade to save him, and then top deck Glorybringer allowed the kill. And man,
Yeah, it's good.
talk about punts in the Pro Tour.
It's still not as good as Wang Chum Yims or whatever his name is.
Oh yeah, the
Like,
Hazaret attack.
the hazard
from-
attack.
Yeah,
That's a beater, you know.
Yeah.
yeah,
That one's one of the worst ones I've ever seen. Like, so I just laughed because like the mono red win Pro Tours have all come down to like
Their opponent messing up.
someone just like punting horribly, like all like involving like weird like
Yeah.
interactions with red cards that you normally don't expect out of like.
Well, Pinto's mistake was, I think, just a very common one in Magic, which was just doing the same thing I did last turn until I win.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's the
And
safe
not
play.
realizing that things
And not
have
realizing
changed.
that, things have changed and now I have a win. Because that attack was correct the previous turn. And then he just sort of made the same attack again,
Yeah.
yeah.
which doesn't get punished by much, but does get punished by a braid into Glorybringer.
Yeah.
Well, I think he, like, looking at his board, he had his Pia sitting underneath his Chain Whirler, and I think he probably just didn't consider it at
To
all.
pump it.
But he
Well,
was
it
using her
wasn't-
to
he
pump.
Didn't, he didn't have to pump.
Oh,
He
yeah,
he had
yeah,
to
he just-
sacrifice
that's what it
2
was, to not
artifacts
block.
to
Yeah,
kill his
yeah, yeah.
opponent. Like, yeah, the win was just on board. It, like, no matter what your opponent has in hand, even a braid is the absolute worst for you. But even if it's an abrade, which it was, you still kill them
Yeah, yeah,
by using your Pia that turn. So that was a bit of a beating. I'm sure he's kicking himself a lot.
Yeah, well, if you lose a Pro Tour finals because of that. in
When you
game
had the
5,
win,
when
yeah.
you had the win, that's
Yeah.
not good.
And you can
See, this is why you got to go on MTG Canada
Yeah.
and play their Possibility Storm puzzle series.
I mean, you can be fairly confident, too, that the internet was kind and understanding and didn't message Pinto telling him at all that he messed up.
yeah, it was like Frank Karsten like tweeted within like seconds.
Yeah, like if I was Pinto, I'm just turning off my phone
Oh yeah, I'm not looking at Twitter.
for like a week.
Yeah.
See, I don't know. Maybe you just embrace it because like when that guy messed up the hazard attack.
Maybe you
just,
start
like,
chirping back. I got
he
second in
just,
a Pro Tour. What you do?
He just like he just embraced it. Remember?
Yeah.
He took that picture of like
With
with
all
a
his
bunch of
hazards.
hazards.
Yeah.
he got too many hazards in hand.
Man, I saw Paul Rietzel did the same thing this Pro Tour with a hazard.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, against Pascal, he attacked with two cards in hands, and then they backed up, and he lost because of it.
Yep.
There's absolutely no way he loses that game if he had one card in hand and could attack with Hazaret.
Yep. He got too excited.
Yeah.
Just too fired up about Hazard.
Yeah, and then he lost that game 2, then lost game 3.
Yep.
All because of that.
With to blue-black mid-range, actually.
Yeah.
A
Turns
deck
out-
that I'm still not convinced is good. Although, it's close. It's getting there.
Yeah.
As people
So,
iterate it, yeah.
As people are making changes to it. And this is something that I said to Cam a few weeks ago. And like, we were testing it. And when the initial versions all played Karn. And I was like, Karn is so incredibly bad in this deck.
Yeah.
And they all cut it. And then
The next one's Ballista.
the next card is Ballista, which people are still unfortunately playing. The 2 of Ballistas just don't do anything in that deck. They just are.
I think it's there as an early roadblock,
But it,
right?
like,
Or just
yeah,
like a
but-
bump in the road, I guess.
But it just doesn't. It's just not enough. Like 1 power and pinging for 1 is
Yeah.
like.
It's not worth a card, and you can't take advantage of it like you can in other decks.
Yeah, you never.
It's just its best is 4 mana, 1 counter, and that's not good enough.
Yeah, like it's just so bad in that deck. But people could at least have so far realized how bad Karn was in that deck and cut it, and people are starting to realize how busted Liliana is.
Mhm.
Death's Majesty probably because of the Chandra and unlicensed nerfs,
Yeah.
right? That Chandra can't just tick up and kill your Lily when she minuses to 2 because her minus puts her at 2.
Yeah.
He's like,
That's also a big deal. Like Teferi minuses to 1 and gets chain whirlered. Liliana can minus and not get chain whirlered.
exactly. Liliana is very, very good.
Man, Chain Whirler. Card's so good.
Yeah, the card's obnoxious. And Ferocidon's banned. Come on, man. But yeah, Liliana very good. Like there are certain cards in the blue-black deck, and I said to Cam, I wouldn't be surprised if in a month or so that it actually turns out that blue-black mid-range is the best deck in the format. Given the right iterations and changes, I'm not 100% what those changes look like yet.
It's definitely starting to put up a lot more results on Moto.
I think one of the changes might be that they cut Gifted Aetherborn. I think that card is trash.
Yeah, but what else are you doing on 2?
That
That's the
Glint
thing.
Sleeve, no fear.
Well, you
You
have
to
Glen
play
Sleeve.
Glen
You play
Sleeve.
both.
You play both.
Oh,
They play
okay.
both, remember?
Yeah. I think it's kind of a necessary like evil in that
It might
deck.
go to 3 colors.
It might go to 3 colors. Are they main decking Bloodfast yet?
Yeah, Kevin Jones was. And it was like the only reason he... Did you see that insane game he played
I
versus
didn't.
Marcio Cavallo?
No.
So he kind of... It's not a punt, but he doesn't play game 3 to win. And he could have won, so I guess it is a punt.
Yeah.
But game 1, he's like so incredibly behind. And he has a Bloodfast that he plays out. Because it's his only play on like turn 2. Because he has a main board and he's playing against red-black.
Yeah.
And the commentator's like, ha, 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 like main deck Bloodfast, like what an idiot. Like, yeah, that's so embarrassing. And then like, you know, because you lose life to draw cards, right?
Yeah.
And then he ends up flipping it when he's like exactly at 5 life, and then just like making this insane comeback. It was the coolest game of the entire Pro Tour, where he constantly is recurring Gonti with Lily and other things and and just sacking with the Temple of Osatska or whatever from the flipped Bloodfast to gain life and prevent unlicensed disintegration from ever killing him.
Jeez.
Because he can sack whatever gets unlicensed. So he's just sitting behind it, gaining life. And like his Gonti steals a Glorybringer, which he uses to like kill their Glorybringer and sack to gain 4. Like, and then he finally draws Scarab God and like wins. But it's like over the course of like 20 turns, this thing's just like sacking to gain 3 life from a recurring Gonti. Like it was ridiculous.
It's wild.
Yeah, it was a sweet game. It was like round 15 of the Pro Tour. If anyone wants
I
to
have
watch
to go
it.
watch that.
It's
yeah.
a sweet game. Like yeah.
He was also playing a couple Search for his Kanta main too, right?
I'm pretty sure that was board for the control matchup. That was like hilarious. Like there was some coverage, like on coverage, you know, again, this is a deck where on paper you'd think like, oh, this deck is like not good versus control because it's just like got a bunch of junky removal that doesn't line up versus Teferi. But like he slaughtered control on camera, and he slaughtered Greg Orange, who's like only plays control. You know what I mean? And like anytime control's good, he's top 8'd. Like when he's top 8'd during Sphinx's Revelation, he top 8'd during like Ojutai. You know what I mean? Like the guy's only plays blue-white control. And he got crumpled because like Kevin Jones just went like turn 2 Bloodfast, turn 3 Duress You, search for his gun. against a control deck. He had Bloodfest and Escanta. Like the game was just over.
Yeah.
Like, and that's
Jeez.
but like, I don't know what they changed for Gifted Aetherborn.
That was what I'm saying. Bloodfest and Search Main.
Yeah, maybe. And
That's
they
your
just-
2-drop. And like you probably don't want to play 4 Champion of Wits. It's a bit of a liability. You still want a couple of that effect, but like Search replaces that
it
a
was
bit.
too good.
It was probably too good, but like Search replaces that a bit. Like lets you sort of filter your draws, set things up.
See, originally we were kind of like, okay, so we sent some listeners the bug list, and we didn't have a bunch of champions in it. And addendum
Yeah.
to all listeners that we sent that list to, I apologize. We're gonna send you an updated list,
So
and that updated list is -4 cards plus 4 champion wits. Because I think that bug list is just maybe a better blue black. Because I would rather play a deck that has Servant of the Conduit than Gifted Aetherborn, because I think that deck can take advantage of it better.
Mhm.
And Servant potentially does very good things, whereas Gifted Aetherborn, they either ignore or Lightning Strike, whatever. And it just doesn't have an enter the battlefield effect.
do you even want Champion of Wits though?
Yeah, card nuts.
It's
Well, like look at this 8-0 list that came second in the PTQ. Do you see Champion?
No, but like I still think it's very, very good.
I don't know, man. Like that feels so bad playing
If-
Champion on turn 3 on the play.
Yeah, but it's sort of like you didn't really care about the body, and really, it was setting up your draws. Like that's more.
Yeah.
It's just the 3-mana Faithful Saluting is how you have to think about it. But like the reason I say, okay, so like maybe
it's a card you want in the graveyard eventually too.
Maybe
like,
you don't need to change the bug list we sent some people, because if control isn't as good, then you don't need it,
Mhm.
because you want Champion of Wits in your deck versus control decks,
Yeah.
because you need to pitch fatal pushes, and you also can make it a 4/4 from the graveyard, and they can't get essence scattered.
Yeah.
Can't get syncopated. You know what I mean? There's a bunch of reasons that Champion of Wits is very, very good versus like mid-range decks and control decks, because it allows you to basically win the card advantage fight, allows you to pitch dead cards, allows you to sculpt your hand. But against aggro, it's probably not good enough. So that could be
Yeah.
why this deck.
Because like when I used to play blue black, Champion was good, like you said, to help fix your hand, get away dead cards. But a lot of its utility also came from being able to chump block something, or maybe in best case scenario trade with something. So it's beyond just netting you cards, I guess. It also affected the board in some way. And right now, with a metagame full of Chain Whirlers, I don't think you get that utility of affecting the board in any way,
Yeah.
which
Like
might mean which is
Yeah.
why you might not want it.
It's
right
gotten worse. That's clear.
I think the
but
bug
it
deck
could still be good enough.
I think the
Yeah.
bug deck we were talking about got better currently with our 4 Bronte Boy
Oh yeah.
strategy
I do like Bronte Boy right now.
with Servants and Bronte Boys. I think that like we're better against Red Black than
Mhm.
than we are against Control with that version. 4 Vraska's Contempts. Like
Mhm.
I think the deck list is pretty good. Like we still have to make some changes maybe, but
Yeah,
that's
for a list we sort of just came up with.
But that's the reason we haven't been able to work on the bug list is because we've been doing RPTQ work, and we can't play that deck at the RPTQ because it takes up too many
Man,
colors and.
when are they just
slots.
going to accept that team events and weird unified events and weird non-formats shouldn't be supported?
Well, probably after this year.
Yeah, where
Yeah, where everyone's like starts complaining about it because it's just too much.
People are already complaining about it. And
Yeah.
the whole reason for doing it was because it's Magic's 25th anniversary, and they're like,
yeah.
yeah.
I was just gonna say sorry. Because I saw it on the screen, a card like Cam and I just completely forgot about that was just busted all weekend was never to return.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That card's so good.
Yeah.
I like forgot it existed, and then it
Yeah.
was just like dealing with annoying graveyard cards.
Yeah.
Killing planeswalkers. I was like, oh, okay. This is
Well, yeah, it's in the slot of Champion of Wits in this blue-black
Yeah,
deck.
and that's what Kevin Jones was playing at the Pro Tour as well.
Yeah.
It's very good.
Yeah.
We're running kind of out of time here. There's like a bunch more we could talk about. Like,
We're at 54 minutes. We're okay.
What else is on this list? There's bullet points.
but like, yeah, I mean, there's so much we could talk about. Like, there's a ton of like new interesting decks from the PT. Like,
Yeah,
well,
we've
let's
been
touch on them a bit.
Yeah, we've been talking.
I
we
mean,
mentioned the
I
Karn
think-
deck.
the way to close this would be like, yeah, like what was your favorite deck from the Pro Tour, and also what would you play this weekend?
Okay, easy. I'd play red-black aggro.
Coward.
No, man. Cheney Boy the God. I played
Dude,
red-black in every
Play
tournament.
mono red gift goblins. You get Cheney boys and you get to gift people.
No,
You think anyone has graveyard interaction in 2018?
no.
Yeah, exactly.
No, I played red black in every single event I've played in the last couple months, and I don't think I would change that. The deck still feels super good. I really like it.
Yeah, deck's nuts. I
Yeah.
stand by when I first saw like really refined deck lists of it, and
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, this deck is crazy good.
Yeah.
Like it's just well built, well thought out.
Yep, I very much enjoyed it.
I never bought into like black white, for example. Like everyone was like, black white's great. I'm like, this deck looks junky as hell. But red black, I was like, this deck is very good. Like
Yeah.
it's just obviously very good. It's proactive and aggressive.
Yeah.
I wish kind of white black was good because History Benalia is so busted. But
Wait for rotation.
yeah, when rotation happens, that like History Benalia is going to be a card that is just everywhere.
Yeah. Man.
That card's obnoxious.
I'd play Esper Control. I'd want to go back to working on Esper Control because I was working on it for a bit, and now it actually did well at the Pro Tour. Well, one of them did well.
Two of them did well.
Two of them did well, sort of like validating my theory, and so I'd work on that again, or I'd play some more mono red.
Yeah, mono red type.
Yeah,
I'll play the bug list.
yeah, that too. I'd want to work on that. There's a bunch I want to work on.
I'd play a bug list
Yeah.
with just like bunch of Vraskas.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like I think Vraska's just insane. I forgot how good it was until recently when I played it, and I was like, oh my god. I was like, this card's so insane. Loyalty's so high, kills anything. Like, it's just an insane card. I'd probably play Scarab God because it turns out that card's still
Still
Mhm.
good.
busted.
Yeah.
Like,
The more I think about it, like a bug version has to be where that blue black ends up, unless people are for some reason really
like,
dead
I'm
set on
actually-
casting chupacabras. But even then, like the green shores up every weak point of blue black, like your inability to deal with enchantments, your sort of medium 2-drops.
yes. This is why I think so. This is
Yeah.
why I said I play the bug list. I also think that Death Gorge Scavenger is a card that is very well positioned. If the blue-black card also becomes popular, it eats Champion of Wits out of the graveyard.
Yeah.
It eats Scrap Heap Scrounger. Card's already insane. Like Death Gorge Scavenger is already one of the best green cards in the format, and it becomes better if the blue-black deck becomes good.
Yeah. You know, closing note on this Pro Tour, I don't think people should get too discouraged by the top 8 being all Chain Whirler
agree.
decks. Because, you know, it's kind of a bad look having, you know, the only GP, standard GP, to be all red-black decks and this top 8 being 7 red decks. But I mean, if you're following like Moto or anything, like the format's still super diverse. You could play still pretty much anything.
I agree.
You know, I don't think red Chain Whirler decks are the end all be all of the format.
Agree. I think that it was the majority deck at the Pro Tour,
Hmm.
and as a result, saw a lot of success because of that. I think
Yeah.
that like representation matters in performance in Magic. Like I think that if just half the field shows up with red cards, which is, you know, we can look at the stats, half the
Yeah.
field showed up with red cards, then red cards will dominate, and they won't just take half the top 8. It's just they represent so much of the field that
Mhm.
will disproportionately be reflected later. Like,
Yep.
And I just think that that's sort of what happens at the Pro Tours. Like,
It's
Yeah.
also kind of nice having like a single tier 1/tier 0 like couple of archetypes, because if you want to brew, if you want to test anything out, if you have us like an acceptable red black matchup, your deck's good. You can play it. If you don't, scrap it. Like you kind
Yeah.
of narrows down the testing a lot.
some of the sweeter decks, if people are curious though, that I might consider playing, and I'll probably like as soon as the RPTQ's over, I'm gonna sleeve this bad boy up. I'm playing the Josu Vess.
Green black ramp.
The
Green black ramp deck
deck.
that the guy played at the PT. There's a PT list that went 7-3. That's just like ramping to Vraska and
Josu
Vess.
Vess.
And I'm about that. It plays like 4 Fatal Push 4 Vraska's Contempt because it can cast Vraska's Contempt early. Plays like 3 Vraskas.
It's an Hour of Promise deck, right?
Yeah, it's an Hour Promise deck. Like it's just trying to like, you know, mid-range the board, like play a rock game plan for the first couple turns and then just like explode 20 power of menace onto the board and kill them in one shot. Like it's sweet. I think it's cool. When 7-3, like,
Yeah.
you know, the fail state of Josu Vess is still a 4-mana 4/5 with menace. Like that's not the worst. Its fail state is like actually a pretty playable card.
Hmm.
I think that deck's really cool. Like it's just a funny deck. I like Hour of Promise decks. I think that that card is still criminally underplayed in its tenure
Mhm.
in Magic because of the power of like utility lands currently. Like I think there's a lot of utility lands that are very good. Field of Runes, Scavenger Grounds, etc. And I just like Hour of Promise decks. So I'm gonna fiddle around with that or like bug decks when I'm done with the RPTQ.
Cool.
Speaking of like weird, or like trying to beat mono red and red black, something I read online. I don't know if it's actually good enough. I'd have to look at the cards again, but like I've heard people discussing sideboarding dinosaurs with enrage triggers. So if you play one first, they just don't want to chain whirler you.
Whoa.
You can play the one that gains 2 life.
Or like the 4-mana one that like draws a card. Like out of red black they can unlicense it.
Raptor?
Yeah. Out of red
Poggers.
Out of red black they can unlicensed it, but the mono red deck it's a 4/5 and they just can't play chain whirler again or let you draw a card.
Could also play like Ranging Raptors, the 2/3/3 drop that
gets lands.
gets a land. Yeah. Hey, maybe this is the next level.
Ripjaw Raptor's already like a playable card. I mean,
Yeah.
it definitely was overrated at its spoilers.
Yeah.
Because like every single person
Yeah.
wrote that it was like the best card ever. It was like the second coming of Christ. And then it never saw any play whatsoever.
Yeah, maybe this is the way you counter chain whirler decks. You play a Bronte Boy deck with enraged dinos.
Huh.
Maybe we solved it. I don't
Dude,
know.
you can play
Probably didn't, but
Probably not. It's probably terrible.
it's probably not good enough. But
Only time will tell. Someone has to try it.
Someone try it and let us know. I mean, I would actually just go play it like on Thursday because I'm gonna start playing like a lot more Magic now. But got a test for this RPTQ, so I'm gonna go play Standard on Thursday and Friday with my RPTQ deck.
All right. Let's do this blowout. Cam's got a good one for us.
oh yeah. So in the draft portion of PT Wizards Tower, I had a pretty good draft.
Pretty good is underselling a bit. His draft deck was pretty insane.
So it was shaping up to be quite good after pack 1. I had a pack 1 Lyra, and then got like a Danitha and some other like solid
Say no
solid
more.
white cards.
Say no more.
And then pack 2, I opened Karn's Temporal Sundering, and it's kind of the most medium of that cycle of legendary sorceries, so I pass it. And my next pick is a Yawgmoth's Vile Offering, and my next pick is an Urza's Ruinous Blast. And then I take, I end up with like a bunch of other legendaries. I had a Zahid, I had some other rare legendary.
Well, I saw the deck.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I got a Wrath.
Yeah,
A Wrath came around.
Yeah, I know.
that card's good.
And so it was like just a nuts deck. Like my first 2 wins were like super easy. But in the second round, my opponent hadn't seen it yet. Game 1, I had like played a Wrath and just attacked in the air. Game 2, I flash in a Wrath on 4, attack him for 3, and play a 5th land and pass. And he has a Knight of Malice, and he tapped all 4 of his lands to play Warcry Phoenix. And then he attacks me. Because I have the Wrath, the Knight is pumped, and so he's like, yeah, I attack you for 6. So there's a short sword on the Knight too. So he's like, it's 4/3 first strike and a 2/2, like attack you. I'm like, oh, you're tapped out? Yeah. That's a 4/3 first strike? Yeah. Flash in this Lyra. Block.
So I was sitting beside his opponent during that round, and I had seen Cam's deck already, and Cam passes with 5 lands.
This was, by the way, a standard deck at the beginning of Standard in the bad Wrath deck.
Yeah.
This is what Cam was playing.
So I'm kind of sitting there watching his opponent kind of plan out his turn and then attack, and I'm like thinking to myself, I'm like, man, Cam's gonna flash in a Lyra, and it's gonna be so funny. And then he does it, and I just burst out laughing right in the tail.
You were playing against Dan Lanthier.
Yeah,
Like, he also was like,
I lost
"Whoa."
it. Yeah,
People like at the other end of the table, like some people from across the store, like, what did you just say?
yeah. Like I'm not joking. I actually burst out laughing at the table. It was amazing.
Yeah, that's a powerful interaction.
There were multiple times in that draft where I was
That's
just
so
like,
obnoxious.
kind of apologized to my opponent and then like wrathed them or flashed in
Yeah,
Lyra
I remember
or
you
like
telling me like somebody like just dumped their hand and you were like you just like shrugged and like they like dumped their hand. They were gonna like smash you and you just like had a 3-mana legendary creature and you just shrugged. You're like, yeah, 5th lander or is this Ruinous Blast?
yeah, it was against Jacob, who's like, yeah, a friend of ours, and so he
Playing
like,
some dumb aggro deck, obviously.
yeah, he like played out a bunch of cards, and I was like, sorry, like Ruinous Blast, you attack.
It's wild.
Blow was just Cam's draft deck in. Yeah,
It
I looked
was-
through it and I was
it
like,
was nuts.
This is.
Oh yeah, it was great.
I was like, this is ridiculous. Like,
Like everything that I wanted to come together did. Like I wanted to splash black for the Vile Offering, and I needed an artifact for the Zahid, and I'm like, oh, I hope I get a Skittering Surveyor, and like, well, I get one, and
they had like Vile Offering.
came together
Lyra,
like perfectly.
It was
Yeah.
like, and the mana was good. Like,
It's wild.
yeah, it was an insane deck.
Just the luckiest person ever.
It's got to happen once in a
No,
while.
went 2-1.
Getting all these
Yeah, he
rares.
actually
I
went
know.
2-1.
I know. I couldn't believe he
But
lost.
he got like completely horribly unlucky and I mean, you
I
could-
lost to a good player who had a good draw, and mine were a bit awkward.
yeah,
it happens.
like the best. I've definitely had like 10 out of 10 draft decks and like lost a round.
Never happened to me.
where I'm like, well, my draft deck's like just absolutely busted, but I'm all to 5 and there's nothing I can do. And
Yeah.
like I just
So,
ran
yeah.
over by medium cards and mine didn't line up. Like,
I had a Lyra on 5.
oh, you just never had a 10 out of 10 draft deck.
That's a joke.
It took me a sec to get that. That's pretty good. That's a good one.
All right.
Yeah.
Can wrap this up. All right. Thank you all for joining the club this week. Make sure, as always, you check out wizardtower.com for all your Magic single needs. And if you want to get in contact with us, you can find us on Twitter at DWC Podcast 1, or you can find us on Facebook, the Disorganized Wizard Club Podcast. Like our page, shoot us a follow, shoot us a message. We always like hearing from listeners, or if there's, something you want us to talk about on the show, or if there's a list we talked about that you want to grab from
We
us.
try to respond to everyone.
Yeah,
It's like
well,
if
we
you
do.
need lists, like we try to send cyborg guides if you need it. So just yell.
Yeah, shoot us a message. And however you listen to this podcast, whether it's on Podbean, iTunes, any podcast app, leave us a review, rate the podcast, share it with your friends. It's the best way to keep this thing growing and bring it to New Year's. So thanks all for listening. We'll catch you all next week.
Bye.